please work. Please work. I'm gonna turn off all. No. Okay, I should probably get out of that interface. Turn off all. No. Okay, I should probably get out of that interface. What in the world? Fat Acceptance TikToks compilation. What is this? Is this worth my time? Dude, there's...
Say it, perhaps.
Yeah, no, I'm not watching that. There's gotta be something. Chopin Battle, but I can... News. Like, I want to watch, like, old videos from my family, but, like, I don't want to put that on stream. Is anyone else here? And we're back. Yeah, Stan. Hello, Stan. Or Mr. Blackwood, I guess, because you're an adult and I'm a teen, so I should probably show the respect. But, yeah, sorry I ended the stream. I got called in the middle of the stream, and it was annoying. Hold on. Bro, is there nothing to put on the background? Whores on the Chinese internet. No. 600-pound lifestar. A bunch of content farms. Oh, is that... What is that? Tajikistan. Poulenc wrote a concerto? Bro, I actually don't know what to watch. Stan is just fine. Alright. Yeah, I mean, I often just call people Mr. or Mrs. and then they'll tell me their first name's fine, so... Yeah, thanks. Bro. Is NBC up yet? NBC... No. Okay, I'm just gonna play for now, because otherwise it's boring. So I'll think of what to watch, maybe. Well, not watch, like listen to. I hope Hyperdog gets back. I don't know if he just left. After I left. I'll be checking chat, like, I don't know how often. I mean, I'll be checking it. But not, like, every 3 seconds, like I used to. Really? I am not going to watch any of my iceberg videos on here because that's not going to be appreciated. Okay, maybe this. We all like Penguin Zero.
I actually cannot believe.
Don't text and drive. Yeah, I'm actually in driver's ed right now, so yes, that is being kind of drilled into my brain. If I drive in real life like I do in this game, I'm gonna die.
Ned Fulmer guys, where we at, huh? Well, I'm sure you recall in 2022 there was the huge scandal that went public about how he'd actually been cheating on his wife for quite a while with their producer, the Try Guys. It was a huge deal. Of course, led to the dissolving of their marriage. It basically kicked Ned off of the public sphere, and he has remained in the back rooms for the last 3 years. He has just crawled his way out of the Shadow Realm and surfaced with a podcast.
Nice.
Called Rock Bottom with Ned Fulmer. His first guest, his ex-wife, so he could talk directly to her about all of the cheating. It's like podcast therapy or some shit, and it actually makes me think podcasting should straight up be illegal or have like some kind of like rigorous vetting protocol in place where you need like a license to own podcasting equipment. This is fucking agonizing. It takes so much to make me turn something off that I've committed to watching. I will stomach any amount of like revolting dog shit this planet has to offer. I could watch Two Girls, One Cup 100 times back without even blinking. But this was too agonizing. I had to turn it off after 30 minutes.
30 minutes is a long time. What?
Imagine
Or like a
she was
relatively
feeling
long
this.
time.
Because he kind of like
At least it's
talks
more
about
than I can
himself
play
as if he's like
Adventure
some
at
kind of a
one
victim,
time.
like a survivor of his own cheating scandal. It's weird. You have to see this.
Strange to think that people are watching this and listening to it rather than just being.
Why is
in a
it, bro?
therapy
You're
setting.
literally.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
It's.
I usually don't talk
it's
like this when I
terrifying.
watch stuff. It's only
Yeah.
because I'm on
It's
stream.
absolutely.
Which, I mean, it doesn't
Yeah,
make much
I
of a
mean,
difference,
I'm
but
like,
I might as well say something.
I'm on the verge of like standing up and walking out of this room. Absolutely.
Understandable. And no one on the planet would blame her if she did. I think that is a totally reasonable response. It is still so baffling to me that this even got made in the first place, to be honest. Now, Ned did give like a pre-game speech here, but I just wanted to show you that he did actually sit down with his ex-wife and have an hour-long discussion with her about him cheating.
Oh, shoot.
And him like prodding her and poking her like, and how did you feel about that? Yeah? Wasn't good, was it? Thought not. It's so fucking weird.
Hi, I'm Ned Fulmer. 3 years ago, I cheated on my wife with my producer. It became a massive public scandal that caused a lot of pain to a lot of people. I know that I represented myself as a kind of wife guy who talked about his relationship and put that out there for public consumption.
Big wife guy. Ned Fulmer used to be synonymous with wife guy. I think. I don't know. I was never the biggest consumer of Try Guys content, but from what I understand, that was like a core part of his identity, like his whole personality revolving around like being the wife guy. So of course that made everything even worse for him, even though it was already extremely bad. Now this has been pointed out by a lot of people, and I don't know.
Okay,
if
now
this guy
starts
is
the fun
always
part.
been, if he's just this kind of
A lot of people think the
guy
flat
who
part is the
likes
fun
vocal
part. I mean, it is, but like this
But
hill,
mention
this
it's very
4.6
clear
to
he's putting on,
like 7.6 wherever it starts, that's the fun part. That's where you don't need to. That's where you can't mess up. I mean, you can mess up with this vehicle, but for other cars.
Yeah, I may have presented myself as a wife guy.
Okay.
It's so like nails on a chalkboard.
And you, as a viewer, I know that I broke your
Okay, I can't watch this. His voice is so raspy, bro. Not penguins, but this guy. You can climb that wall with ATV. Yes, that would be cool. I don't have ATV yet, and I'm not gonna pay for it. Like, I don't want to. I haven't spent money for a while on this game, but I also really don't want to play that event. But I will probably have to. Oh well. South Sudan. Hitler's plans for the world if he won. Okay, I'm actually curious about that. His chaotic mind. Yes, I suppose that's true.
Adolf Hitler stands on the podium to great applause. His chaotic mind is racing as the crowd screams out Heil Hitler. A crowd made up of not just Germans, but various nationalities that have fallen under his evil spell. The superpower of Germany is untouchable. There's no such thing as the Soviet Union anymore. The great of Great Britain is lying in the mud. Millions are being executed while millions more are enslaved in Hitler's labor camps. There's just one more thing to accomplish, and that's annihilating the USA. To subdue what Hitler regards as a low-down, dirty race of Mongols. He has won, and it's hell on earth for many. We'll get around to this standoff with the USA, but first we need to know how Hitler pulled it off.
Oh, that was good.
This unbelievable victory in Europe. Here we mix reality with fiction. As you know, at the start of the
How much
Second
fuel
World
can I
War
have
in
left at the next
1939,
one?
Hitler's army, the Wehrmacht, devastated Poland. With its legion of panzer tanks and an incredibly efficient mobile infantry, the Poles were no match for the Germans. The attack was like lightning. which is what the word Blitzkrieg was derived from. In September, German bombs were dropped on the town of Luck, not just
little less
destroying
than half.
buildings, but even killing kids on their way to school. This sent a message of what was to come. The Polish pilot B.J. Sulak noted, "The stench of burning and a brown veil of smoke filled the air all around our town. No one was spared." The German Air Force, the Luftwaffe, rained hellfire down on Poland. Trains were seen derailed from the tracks. Kids screamed.
I'm not going to make that
It
in
was
there.
a terror no one could have expected.
But I
So
do
on
have
September
Cam,
3rd, Britain
so-
and France declared war
Yay.
on Germany. Amazingly, France was beaten in just 6 weeks, and
Dang.
in time, something worrying occurred. Surprisingly, most of the French accepted the new Vichy government, one sympathetic to Nazi ideology. Not many know that a large number of people in France endorsed Hitler's hatred toward the Jews. Bear this in mind as we go through this story today. But by that time, Denmark, Norway, Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg had already been beaten by the Germans. It was as if the German soldiers were on steroids, which isn't far from the truth in the view of their heavy use of powerful methamphetamine for Viking. And with Norway defeated, Hitler now had access to heavy water. Although not known at the time, this is a key ingredient in the creation of the nuclear bomb. This was bad news. When France fell and the British were left scurrying for their lives on the escape from Dunkirk, it looked as though the Germans were totally invincible. These conquests so far meant tens of thousands of Germans killed and many more injured. France itself had lost 50,000 men in the invasion, Britain lost 11,000, but now Germany had a massive 1.5 million prisoners of war. It would have been much
What?
worse had the Brits not had their miracle at Dunkirk. Britain was at this point waiting for the Battle of Britain. It was a frightening thing to imagine. Not many people thought this small island nation could hold its own, but the fighting spirit still burned within Britain. As a wounded British soldier named Paul Ritchie said when he was flown back to England from France, he couldn't imagine his country going the same way France had. In his own words, he said, "With my mind still filled with the blast and flame that had shattered France, I was seized with utter disgust at the smug contentedness enjoyed behind the sea barrier. Still, he worried about what was around the corner." On June 18, 1940, Winston Churchill spoke at the House of Commons. In his impeccable oratory style, he said, "I expect the Battle of Britain is about to begin. Upon this battle depends the survival of Christian civilization. Upon it depends our own British life." He was probably right. Churchill went on, "Hitler knows he will have to break us in this island or lose the war. If we fail, then the whole world, including the United States, will sink into the abyss of a new dark age." He said that upon the defeat of Germany, men will say that this was their finest hour. And take note, he said Hitler would go after the USA. It was just a matter of time, according to this cigar-munching elitist who admitted
Super Cheese, what's up? Not playing Hot Rod today, am I? Thankfully.
Lee was drunk and drugged up half the time. Still, he correctly envisioned the hell that Hitler would unleash. That's why Churchill was so against settling with Hitler. He was sure that at some point the furious Fuhrer would have Britain in shackles and take over his empire. Hitler would not stop, not until Nazi ideology pervaded the globe. The Battle of Britain commenced. In the skies, British Hawker Hurricanes and Spitfires fought it out with the German Messerschmitt Bf-109s. The so-called dogfights were crazy, and many young pilots who went up did not come back down, alive anyway. Here is how one Spitfire pilot described the day of work. "We were both flying in a tight circle, just a little more and I'll have him. Pressing the trigger, I waited expectantly for the 109 to explode. I've hit his wing. He was one of the lucky ones. Life expectancy for an RAF pilot during war was a grim thing indeed. 60% of operational airmen died, were injured, or became prisoners of war. Around 51% of all RAF aircrew died. Bombs from German junkers rained down on strategic locations in England, with sirens blaring on a regular basis during what the Brits called the Blitz.
EVE Online is a vast universe, alive with
What's happening,
It went
Bob?
on for 8 months, but the British down below were typically
I don't
vulnerable
know.
to hardships. One
I
woman
don't
wrote in her
know.
diary, "I wonder what the pilots feel. After all, somebody loves them even if they're Nazis." At some point, Hitler made the mistake of withdrawing aircraft for Russia's planned invasion in May 1941. That really was a mistake. It turned out the Germans lacked a cogent strategic plan. The planes also often missed their targets, and British scientists were good at reading German signals and jamming their radars. The British public showed fortitude too. A woman named Barbara Dixon wrote that she'd never even heard of Poland, but she'd do anything to repel the beast of Hitler, who she said was trying to blow us up or murder us in our beds. Historians say attacking Britain was one of the great blunders Germany made in the war, with the next one being the invasion of the Soviet Union. Had Hitler
You are
focused
not
all his
being
strength on Britain and not at one point said, "Okay, we'll come back for you later," the Brits might have settled with Germany. Many people in Britain wanted that. They didn't think Hitler was as crazy as he turned out to be. Hitler had many times expressed his liking for British culture, and he said, unlike those mongrels in America, Britain had a good Aryan culture. Prior to German propagandists criticizing the British for their empire's atrocities and their plutocrats living like kings while the working class lived in the slums, Hitler had some pretty good relations with certain British politicians. Britain's army was nothing compared to the German army, and no one really expected them to hold their own in the skies. Even the U.S. ambassador in London, Joseph Kennedy, said Britain had no chance. Despite 23,000 civilians dying and around 33,000 injured, with the German retreat, confidence was bolstered. It's not 1,000 RAF planes were shot down, with about 544 fighter command pilots losing their lives. Then, with bombers and Coastal Guard losses, that added up to 1,542 planes lost, and another 1,542 lives lost. The German Luftwaffe lost around 1,800 planes, and more than 2,500 pilots were killed. Across the pond, an American journalist wrote, Adolf Hitler met his first defeat in 8 years, and what might go down in history as a battle as important as Waterloo or Gettysburg. Winston Churchill uttered those now famous words, never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few. This bolstered confidence in the U.S. too, and elsewhere in the world. Germany wasn't invincible. It sent a strong message, and for Britain at the time, having the most powerful navy in the world, it knew no Germans would be walking down its streets anytime soon. But as we said, Hitler planned to come back for Britain just as soon as he'd taken care of other matters, namely the Soviet Union. The reason we spend some time on this matter is that had Britain been soundly beaten and backed down, the whole outcome of the war would be different. With Britain out of the war, Germany could have focused less time on one very formidable foe in Europe, in Asia, and in Africa. It would have also sent a strong message to the Soviet Union and to the United States. Remember, the U.S. didn't want to get involved in a bloody European war. U.S. citizens didn't want their young men being shot to pieces far from its now incredibly industrious shores. But in our alternative universe, let's say Germany did succeed in having air superiority over Britain. Germany might have launched Operation Sea Lion, the planned land invasion of Britain. This was not...
Wow, thanks for the help. You're welcome.
Hitler's first choice. He had been hoping for the British to accept his offer to back down out of the war. This is what Hitler had said he needed to happen for that invasion to be successful. First, he said the RAF had to be beaten down in its morale, and in fact that it could no longer display any appreciable aggressive force in opposition to the German crossing. Then he hoped the English Channel would be swept of mines, and if the British Navy was distracted with fighting in the North Sea and the Mediterranean, it would make crossing the Channel in England more achievable. Apparently, even Hitler's inner circle wasn't keen on this idea, and if you read the writings of contemporary historians, most will tell you he would have failed. Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt suspected Hitler was just trying to bluff Britain into pulling out of the war. He said, by God, even Napoleon failed to invade Britain. The place was a veritable fortress. The German Navy, the Kriegsmarine, was no match for the British Navy. It ruled the waves, and it had done so for years. But in our scenario, Britain lost in the air. The morale of the military...
This is gonna be pretty dull until I get to 26k. I don't even know if I'm gonna be able to pass 26k. It should be much easier now, but who knows. And there are still 12,000 meters left to go.
Now Britain was finished. Hitler could certainly win the war. With France and Britain...
With 4 parts, I got like 40k first try, but maybe not here. I mean, I know that's not like insane. It was a dumb death.
Okay,
But
back to real life. Hitler had made a non-aggression pact with another tyrant, Joseph Stalin, but then he invaded Russia anyway. Never trust the word of the tyrant. The German army, full of confidence, was sure it would walk through Russia. They also said they were doing the right thing. As this 18-year-old German soldier named Henry Mendelman said, I accepted as natural that it was German duty for the good of humanity to impose our way of life on lower races and nations, who probably, because of their limited intelligence, would not quite understand what we were on about. Hitler hated Jews, but he was no fan of Slavs either. His notion that most Germans were pure Aryans was utter ridiculous, given centuries of the intermixing of people in Northern Europe. It was ridiculous, full stop. But even so, he was prepared to annihilate Slavish people. As for communists, once he'd won the war in Russia, they would either have to forfeit their ideology or die. The many millions of Jews in the Soviet Union would be hunted down and killed. As General Erich Hebner said, the war with Russia is a vital part of the German people's existence. It is the old fight of Germany. German against the Slav, the defense of the European culture against the Muscovite Asiatic flood, and the repulse of Jewish Bolshevism. So, mark our words, the people of the Soviet Union would have been spared no quarter. or at least those that fit into Hitler described as the lower races. And while Joseph Stalin, by the time he died, had the blood of tens of millions of people on his paranoid hands, his zero tolerance to people not fighting was one reason why Germany couldn't defeat him. The Soviets killed around 300,000 of their own soldiers for refusing to fight, fighting badly, or going AWOL. People starved because of Stalin's focus on building weaponry above feeding his people. People even changed sides because they detested Stalin so much. But if he hadn't been so bloody despotic, Germany might well have won. For the invasion, Operation Barbarossa, Hitler deployed...
I do not know what to think of that one.
2,700 aircraft and 3,600 tanks, which was record-breaking in terms of European warfare. Stalin had 2.9 million troops, 8,000 aircraft, and 11,000 tanks, but the Germans were superior in terms of technology and general warfare. But let's think. If Germany had just defeated Britain in our fictional scenario, there would be a spring in the military step. They'd also be making use of that excellent British arms industry. For instance, in real life, Hitler had thousands of French prisoners who were slaving away in his munitions industry, plus around 650,000 French civilian laborers, not to mention the Vichy French fighting for Germany. Over in the USA, in real life again, many people didn't have much love for the Soviets. The famed American aviator Charles Lindbergh said at the time, "I would 100 times rather see my country ally herself with Britain or even Germany with all her faults than the cruelty, the godlessness, and the barbarism of the Soviet Union." There was more support for Nazism in the US than you might think. Hence, Philip Roth's alternative reality novel, The Plot Against America. The famed industrialist Henry Ford admired Nazi Germany, and he was, for much of his life, very much anti-Semitic, showcased in the anti-Semite books he published with titles such as The International Jew, The World's Foremost Problem. Back to our alternate reality. With the British loss and the USA hardly coming to the rescue, there is every chance that Germany could have won Russia, especially if its ally, for the short term anyway, was Japan, would also attack Russia. Just think, with Britain defeated, Japan wouldn't have to fight the country in Singapore, Hong Kong, and what were the Malaya and Burma. We also have to remember about the impact of all the countries of the British Empire that fought alongside Britain. Think about British India and the massive impact it had on the war, or India alone, whose 2.5 million troops fought under British command. Think about Canada, which couldn't have fought on since it was a dominion of the British Empire. Or even Australia, who, although they didn't join the war effort right away, still provided the Brits with manpower and resources. We understand this is overly simplistic, and we haven't even discussed any countries' atomic bomb.
I just got an emergency call for work. Good luck with the grind. Okay, Stan probably isn't here anymore, but thanks for coming, and good luck. It's me, hi. Hello. Why do I always think you're Brigado when I see you? I don't know why.
But let's just say after Britain fell, the invasion of Russia went as Hitler planned. It was over within the year. This really could have happened had things just been a bit different. What would the USA be thinking now after much of Europe and some of Asia had fallen to Adolf Hitler and Japan? As we said, Americans didn't want to fight a European war. William Kaplan, the then head of Harvard, said as much, one time stating, "Hitler's going to win. Let's be friends with him." Many people thought this way, of course. They weren't fully aware of Hitler's plans for world domination and the sheer ugliness of what he was capable of. Still, the US had meddled in the war by freezing assets and preventing Japan from getting the oil it needed to attempt to build its empire during the war, and Japan didn't much like this American interference. The US wasn't totally out of the war, lending weapons to Britain and helping in other ways, all for a price, of course. But then companies such as GM, Ford, and IBM also sold what was described as useful war materials to Germany. The US made hay while bombs spilled down on Europe.
Capitalism is not that.
It might have stayed that way if Japan hadn't launched the famous attack. Japan had hoped that after attacking the U.S. Pacific Fleet at Pearl Harbor, the U.S. would revert to its isolationist policies. In our alternate reality, the U.S. had watched on as Germany's Operation Barbarossa was successful, and Britain and France were a spent force. In this case, had the Pearl Harbor attack happened, the U.S. might well not have retaliated. But then, had history been different, the U.S. might not have interfered one bit, and the attack on Pearl Harbor wouldn't have happened in the first place. And that's how things are different in our alternate world. So, right now, Hitler's over the moon. The problem is, he has enemies everywhere in his vanquished countries. This is why he's sending out death squads to hunt down the people he doesn't like. For this, he deploys mobile death squads, aka the Einsatzgruppen.
Okay, why do I actually know what that is? I've heard of that before.
That includes the Jewish people, communists, gypsies, anti-fascists, and even intellectuals. Hitler didn't leave all the work to his death squad.
At KPMG, we make the difference by prioritizing data as the primary driver of informed decision-making.
Though, he prepared a list in 1940 of what he perceived to be dangerous Brits, kept in his black book. He is very well aware that he is much despised by a lot of people in occupied Britain. The French had a resistance, but it was small and only really significant close to the end of the war. Still, there would
Is
have
that
been
Free
resistance.
France? Oh yeah, that's Free
This
France.
black book contained 2,820 names, from Jews to journalists to anti-fascists to spies to politicians to academics and novelists, all to be immediately arrested once Britain was successfully invaded. This book can give you some idea about what would have happened if Hitler had won the war. There are some names in the book that would surprise you, including the great writer Aldous Huxley. If Hitler had won in England, the writer of the book Brave New World might not have had the chance in 1949 to congratulate George Orwell on his dystopian novel 1984. We very much doubt he would have written to Orwell saying, "Within the next generation, I believe that the world's leaders will discover that infant conditioning is more efficient as instruments of government than clubs and prisons, by flogging them and kicking them into obedience." He was right, as it turned out in the long run. Anyway, Hitler was doing a lot of flogging and kicking in the UK, and perhaps Huxley, as well as other British intellectuals who liked the idea of freedom, would have been sent to Nazi extermination camps. These Brits had no idea they were on Hitler's hit list. With the playwright Noel Coward writing after the war, "If anyone had told me at the time that I was high up on the Nazi blacklist, I should have laughed and told them not to talk nonsense." For the most part, no one really understood what Hitler would do to secure his vision of a Nazi-led utopia. In Britain, as well as in the Soviet Union, Jews, gypsies, communists, certain kinds of intellectuals are sent to labor camps to work or die in the process. Young and fit people in Britain, as well as Russia, would be drafted to work for the Nazi war machine and its general industries. This machine has to expand. After all, Hitler has the USA in his sights. The country now wondering if Churchill had been right and if they should have helped out earlier when Germany was more vulnerable. Meanwhile, Britain adopts a new government in line with the Nazi regime. That is, an authoritarian, anti-Semitic, and xenophobic government led by Oswald Mosley, whose British Union of Fascists had just been resurrected after being disbanded in 1940. Not too many years earlier, Hitler had kept a keen eye on Mosley, impressed when he said things such as, "For the first time I openly and publicly challenged the Jewish interests of this country, commanding commerce, commanding the press, commanding the cinema, dominating the city of London, killing industry with their sweatshops." And
What?
now with Hitler at the helm and his man Mosley in England, the German propaganda machine goes into hyperdrive. What's astounding is how quickly
Oh,
many people
that was a
already
little
embrace
close.
what
I should
he's
not
saying.
be.
He promises an
I don't
end
know
to
where
war,
anything
telling
is
them
in this
the upper
map,
classes
bro.
have kept them in bondage for centuries. Soon thugs like the old king and church mob squashing resistance to the British fascists. People are afraid to speak out against fascism. Progressives are hunted down, and something similar is happening in Russia. The Russian Fascist Party has never been that big. But now with Stalin and almost all of the Politburo exterminated or in labor camps, and with the Germans releasing many thousands of
Where's the
Soviet prisoners from
fuel?
gulags, a lot of
Where's
people
the
started
fuel?
believing the Nazi
Okay.
propaganda. Millions had died under Stalin. Millions more had been on the verge of starvation or been sent to gulags, and generally lived in fear. That's why it doesn't take long for these deeply oppressed people to embrace another form of government, one that promises a better society. As time goes on, while Germany focuses much of its efforts on industry and taking back the African colonies that had been taken away after the First World War, something strange is happening in the USA. The German propaganda machine under Joseph Goebbels is incredibly effective, even far away in the US. The mass exterminations have been kept away from the world's eyes for the most part. Despite the rumors and in spite of the spy.
Ah, crap.
the
Wait,
public
this is the
doesn't know about
26K
those
fuel,
wicked
isn't it?
massacres of innocent people. So now the Nazis spew out propaganda regarding how their new world order is rescuing people from out-of-control capitalist slavery and releasing them from the chains that they say the Jewish elite have placed on them. A worrying number of people are taking interest in the fascist movement in the US. Remember, this is a country where a massive part of the poorer population has just gone through absolute hell during the Great Depression. Hitler blames all that on the Jews. And when leading fascism supporters in the US talk, something American people listen, as they also do over the border where the Canadian Union of Fascists speaks at events. Then when Charles Lindbergh stands up and promotes his America First policy, pro-fascist isolationists in the crowd cheer. These crowds just keep growing, and anti-Semitic sentiment grows with it. Even though the USA is already backward when it comes to civil rights compared to other advanced nations.
Okay,
racism
please,
becomes
please,
even more
please,
intense
please,
throughout
please,
the
please,
nation.
please,
The fascists
please.
in the US
Yes.
leave Europe to its own devices.
Let's go.
They say any form of intervention in European affairs will likely be disastrous given the now great power of Germany. People look up to Lindenberg when he says things
I don't even know where the next fuel is,
a
though.
few
Okay.
far-sighted Jewish people realize this.
I know there's something bad at 30K,
But the majority still do
but I
not.
should be fine because I have
The greatest danger
cam.
to this country lies in their large ownership and influence in our motion pictures, our press, our radio, and our government. Remember, this guy is a national hero. When he speaks, many people are glued to his every word. The U.S. government has awarded this famed aviator the Medal of Honor and the Distinguished Flying Cross. But now the Nazis have also given him a medal, namely the Commander Cross of the Order of the German Eagle. The Nazis know that Lindbergh and Ford, two of the most powerful men in America, often discuss what they and the Nazis call the Jewish problem. Perhaps Hitler thinks Germany doesn't need to attack the U.S. at its borders. Perhaps he can take control from within the borders, with the help of an American fascist party working on his behalf. Hitler muses that it isn't as if this country of Mongols doesn't already have widespread white supremacy. America can quite easily be pushed over the edge, he assumes. Those he calls the mongrels will once again be enslaved and the Jewish will be executed. The racial segregation that already exists in the U.S. will just be taken up a notch. Hitler once said that the U.S. military posed no threat, but he has changed his mind as of late. Invading the U.S., he knows, is an almost impossible task, even though part of him believes the country's military is weak due to its racial diversity. He writes in his diary one day that he'd like nothing more than to see New York in flames. Japan has already been granted part of the former Soviet Union, and the country is certainly up for an invasion of the U.S. But will it work? The months pass, the year ticks over, and the power of the Nazis just grows and grows. Now with so much European industry in its control, and an army like the world has never seen, the U.S. is a David to the Goliath of Germany. And this is why the isolationists in the U.S. win over so many of the people.
This is what Ivy League universities you can get into with a 3.6 GPA.
I cannot with these ads.
War will mean mass death. It will mean certain defeat. Why not just as...
So for I don't know if anyone's still watching, but I'm sorry I'm not giving too much commentary. I don't know like what other people do when they stream, but I mean, I guess they engage the viewers, and I should probably be doing that too. But like, it's I don't know.
Moving all that equipment across the ocean just seems like a bridge too far. But if the Canadian fascists who are
I also kind of have to lock in now,
like the British fascists have,
because like I'm playing blind.
land invasion against the so-called decadent capitalists.
Isn't that where Zorro died with like Buzz like 3 years ago? That was a famous clip.
Not to mention, it would also be very risky. Things aren't looking good for the U.S. Damn, think a lot of people. If the UK had only been able to repel Germany, none of this would have happened. That little island losing to the Nazis had changed the entire outcome of the history of the world. Then, one day, Hitler is sitting at his desk and he receives a report that has taken months to compile. The report states that throughout Europe, an estimated 9.7 million Jews have been exterminated. It also states that 350,000 homosexuals have been killed, along with close to 840,000 Romani and Sinti people. Things have moved much faster since Europe was defeated by Hitler. The report doesn't state how many disabled people have died in the camps, although Hitler is pleased when he reads that they're being used for various medical experiments. People of color, says the report, as well as intellectuals, are mostly being employed in slave labor activities, although many have also been exterminated. Meanwhile, scientists working in the USA are making headway with an atomic bomb project. Little do they know that if they could have collaborated with scientists in Britain, the project would almost be complete. Now Hitler has control over Britain's project, seeing that under Mosley, Britain is nothing more than a German puppet state. It also helps that former King Edward VIII has been restored to the throne, a much more suitable monarch for the Nazis than George VI. But what about life in general in this new Europe? Hitler believes that he can create a utopian society, but it's only possible when the people he thinks have caused the world's problems are all dead. Man, woman, and child. He hates religion, but in his new empire, he actually endorses religious tolerance. This is more out of fear of mass resistance than anything else. He also promotes selective polygamy, believing that if you mix the right genes, you will create the right products for his army, for his science projects, for his idea of societal harmony. At times, this is oppressive.
Or is not Confucius.
Selected. Strangely, for a man with so much blood on his hands, Hitler detests cruelty to animals and even endorses but not enforces national vegetarianism. At the same time, he abhors what he calls degenerative art, and he hates the artists just as much, even if they do tick the right box for his so-called master race. He bans pornography in Germany as well as prostitution, some intellectual pursuits, certain kinds of writing and poetry, decadent music, excessive boozing.
What is decadent music even? Oh crap!
Conform to these ideals, but in many cases, the new fascists around Europe espouse and enforce the ideals of the Nazis. In some ways, those who follow Hitler do see some benefits. Even some businesses and industries improve, since Hitler has taken a zero-tolerance stand against corruption. The totalitarian ways, he says, must be simple and without deceits. It is also horribly oppressive and leads to unhappiness that people try not to show. Just as one critic over in the U.S. says, the utopia that Hitler seeks can never be free from tyranny. Anyone who says they don't like this new paradise will be severely punished. The guy who writes that is soon beaten up by one of the now widespread pro-fascist mobs in the U.S. The year is now 1944. For some time, British scientists have been working on an atomic bomb. Aloys project, something that has been kept secret from everyone except those who need to know in Canada. The project was actually started before the USA's Manhattan Project. The Brits had forecast a bomb not being ready until 1947, but once the new German and Soviet scientists joined the project and the Germans have more facilities with the newly built heavy bombers and a hell of a lot more money to make bombs, the project is completed in 1944. But the US Manhattan Project is also just about ready. Little did the world's public know that a nightmare situation is taking place. In 1945, both sides test their bombs, and so it is now known just how much destructiveness is in the hands of leaders, and more concerning in the hands of a man who thinks very little of American mongrels. The strange thing is Hitler, despite the fact that he's gassed millions of people, does not embrace the use of superweapons. He's even held off on using chemical weapons, even though the Germans at the start of the war had a huge stockpile of deadly sarin gas. So it's not so surprising that he doesn't like the thought of using an atomic bomb. As for the US, it was well aware of what's coming back if it drops a bomb. And why would it when Hitler has not yet made it clear he will invade the US? As crazy as Hitler is, he doesn't want to die. He doesn't want his idea of utopia to be destroyed. Still, if something doesn't change in the US, he might have to do something. This Cold War stalemate creates a frenzy among the public, especially the American public, that according to the polls, do not want to go to war with Hitler. It's during this next chaotic year that Lindbergh creates the American Fascist Party to be sympathetic with Nazi ethos, but with an assurance from Hitler that Germany will not interfere in American affairs. So, how does Hitler finally win this war? It's when fascism wins in the USA, when fear, bitterness, anger, and stupidity push people to polls to tick the box under American Fascist Party. Some of the poor just want change, and rightly so, but out of desperation, political distrust, and lack of options, they unwittingly choose their own demise. Lindbergh has assured that no Americans will be harmed in relation to their race or creed, but already an ugliness has seeped into a once hopeful culture. Gangs roam the streets at night, throwing Molotov cocktails through house windows. The police don't do much to stop it. This will only get worse. Families of Jewish people, African Americans, and other minorities, for that matter, huddle together in living rooms and shed tears when they watch Lindbergh throw his fist into the air on his victory. It is a victory for Hitler just as much. America closes its doors to the world, but also inside the house something is rotten. No structure can remain standing when the foundations are warped and decayed. Totalitarianism will eat itself and suppresses natural creativity, and with it societal progress. It foments distrust and paranoia, and in that time leads to widespread violence and unhappiness. One day, goodness and morality and love and compassion among races will win out, and that rotten house will fall down. But for now, the present is Hitler's utopia, hell on earth, even for most of the ones who've asked for it. Now you have to learn something that will amaze you, and why Hitler's nephew was his worst enemy. Or have a look at this.
At Granger, we're for the ones who pay attention to every little detail.
Super. Oh, thanks. Yeah, hold on. Give me a sec. I'm gonna hold on. Let me go search up 802 Beach. Walk like 62k or something. Linus. Maybe he has a walkthrough of like up to 62k. I think he has a full video of this, I hope. Hold on, 802 Beast Linus Super Diesel. I'm pretty sure Linus uploaded an unlisted video of his Super Diesel run, so I can use that as a reference to fuels. Oh geez, it's an hour long. And I also need to be charging my phone in an annoying way. I like low-key want to sleep. But I also need to finish. I'm not just gonna exit this run. So. Is my phone charging? Bro. Why isn't it charging again? Or is this charging or not? What? Okay, let me get to the next fuel so that I'm a little safer. Okay, let's go on the Linus video and see where the next fuel is. I know it doesn't show it on your screen, but what am I at? 36.7. Okay, 36.7 thousand. Okay. It's like somewhere here. 36.7. 36.4. Okay. Somewhere here. Next fuel is at 37.2 on an uphill structure. So that's all great. Like, the only thing that can kill you should be glitches or missing fuel. I mean, I'm obviously not in any glitch phase yet, thankfully. Yep. Okay, is my phone charging? Okay, it is charging. In that case, let me turn something on. I think Super Cheese is the only one watching. I honestly don't know. But this probably is not gonna be in English, so let's see. What is there to watch? How much of this is like actual narrative? I don't know. I can turn that off. No, okay, yeah. How much of this did I actually watch?
그렇게 저기서부터 올라와가지고 결국은 2003년도 말이 됐는데 그때 엄마가 오랫동안 다니던 사무실을 그만두겠다고 결심을 한 거야. 2003년 말에.
I don't know if anyone's watching, but for context, this is my grandparents, my maternal grandparents explaining their story, sort of, at my grandfather's 70th birthday party in South Korea. And I'm watching this because I've looked at like every other photo and like I have nothing else now. I don't really want to watch YouTube.
그만두겠다고 사무실에다 선포를 하고 2003년 연말에 끝내고
Where's that?
2004년 초서부터 이제 이 집 짓는 사람을 우리가 2003년도에 이제 다 이제 어느 정도 알아놨지. 이 집을 짓는 사람은
How much XP is this gonna give me? I know I bought 12,000 XP. It's double event right now, so ideally like 48k.
그 사람을
Oh shit.
소개받아가지고
Bro, I need to be more careful.
그래서 어차피 설계하고 집 짓고 하려면 여기다 시간을 많이 뺏겨야 되는데 사무실을 나가면서 두 가지 일을 할 수가 없었어. 그래가지고 내가 그만두고
Oh shoot, I'm in the background of this video.
설계하러 그 사무실에
I mean, I was like 9 years old.
그래서 거기를 이제 계속 서울로 왔다 갔다 하면서 설계를 시작한 거지. 그래가지고 한 2월 말 이때부터
Okay, I don't know where the next fuel is.
3월, 4월서부터 이제 본격적인 이제 공사를 들어간 거고. 그때 이제 보다시피
Okay.
우리 땅은 여기까지잖아, 여기까지. 근데
Here, this is like around where I died. I need to check where the next fuel is. 39.5. Okay, next fuel is at 40.6 in a dip. That's not good.
까지만 하면 이 집이 평수가 많이 안 나오니까 설계를 이제 여러 가지를 하다가 저 필로티를 만들어서 옆을 늘리기로 해서 그러한 형태로 이제 집 모양의 설계가 나온 거지. 그렇게 해서 이제 설계를 들어갔는데 이 아빠가 한옥을 좋아하고 황토를 좋아하고 나무를 좋아하시다 보니까 또 완전 한옥을 짓는다는 거는 또 좀 어떻게 보면 여기다 기어 올리고 뭐하면 절같이 보일 것도 같고 그래서 그냥 그렇게는 안 하고 말하자면 우리 집은 휴전이야 휴전 그런 상황이야. 그래서 집을 짓게 되는데
It's like somewhere up here.
공법에 대해서는 당신이 얘기를 하시죠.
그 아래서 또 쭉 올라왔는데 여기 끝이 가장 경사가 심했던 거죠.
네.
그러니까
Okay.
정말 여긴 걸어다니기도
Let's go. This is annoying. I don't want to be checking like every single fuel, but I kind of have to. 41.6, 41.7 on another downhill. That's a tough.
뭐 지퍼도 마찬가지지만 이 요만한 조그만 터널들 위해서 여기도 추에 작업을 근데 너무 경사하시고 물이 대목이 너무 많이 비가 많이 올 때는 그래서 옹벽을
Oh, that was dangerous. Okay.
옹벽을 잘 지어가지고 흙을 갖다 붓고 돌을 쌓고 요 조그만 곳을 만들었는데
If I can get, what is it now? Well, since it's only 2 times 2, I would need, what? I can't do math. 37.5 KXP.
순서를 지어주시고
Well, since it's double,
보통 우리가 이 집을 질 때부터 황토를
what does I say? 41.7.
이렇게 벽돌식으로 압력을 구해서 황토 벽돌, 황토 벽돌을
Okay. No cell.
그걸 가지고 벽돌로 싸서 그렇게도 짓는데
I swear if I end up surpassing this round.
그래서 옛날식이라는 것은 이 나무 구입만 하더라도 더블라스
금리 더블라스.
금리 수입한 더블라스라는 그 나무 원목을 갖다가 직접 갖다가 키워서 해가지고 이 목수들이 이걸 직접 끼워 맞춰서 옛날에 그래가지고 흙 하는 것도 벽돌 대신 그 옛날에 황토도 강화 황토로 주겠다고 해서 황토 나오는 데 가서 들이 구에다가 그래가지고 황토에다가 볏짚을 넣고 또 볏짚을
Oh, okay. The fact that you can just go so fast, still have fuel left. Wow.
그래가지고
There's a big no fuel section here. 43.9.
그 다음에 이 흙을 하기 위해서는 산자를 수수깡.
네네.
옛날 수수깡을 가지고 흙을 갖다가 흙을 싸는 것도 저 지푸랑 놓고 해가지고 이렇게 반죽을 만들어서 이렇게 손으로 동그랗게 해가지고 동져서 사둬서 조금씩 쌓고. 근데 그걸 싸면은 뭐 넓게 높게 한꺼번에 못 싸요. 문을. 그러니까 조금 쌓고 말르면 또 넓히고 또 말르면 높이고 시간이 많이 걸려요. 이제 옛날에 산자를 수수깡으로 했지만 이거는 이제 나무 펴가지고 산자를 엮어요.
Oh shoot! Wait, I might. This might be close. Hold on.
그걸 갖다가 이렇게 쌓는 거, 또 끼워 맞추는 거. 이거 때문에 시간이 많이.
Like I was barely even concentrating.
뒷번째 짓고 별채 짓고 또 다음에 정제 짓고 하는데
1년 아니야 1년 걸렸어요. 설계까지 하면 1년 반. 설계까지 하면 1년 반. 짓는 것만 해서 한 1년 걸리고 그 정도 걸리고.
이거 설계할 때도 뭐 많이 보고 그래야 되기 때문에.
그럼 굉장히 많이 뭐 전원 속에 내 집 이런 책 보고 이쁜 집 있으면 전화해서 찾아가서 구경하고.
Right after 45.
그런 사람들은 또 그런 걸 허락해. 그런 책에 내는 사람들은 자기 집을 보여주고 싶어해.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So that's just a 1,000-meter gap.
뭐 정원을 꾸밀 때도 많이 다녀보고 집을 질 때도 많은 집들 찾아다니면서 얘기 듣고 경험 듣고 그러면서 이제 설계가 엄마가
So I have permission to go
아빠는
fast.
이 토목공사를 해서 터를 만들고 어떻게 지어야 되겠다. 근데 이 집을 또 쓸모 있게 지기 위해서는 어떻게 지어야 되겠다는 것은
Oh, that was close. Oh, that was close. Oh, that was close.
이 살림하기 좋게 또 엄마 용도에 맞게끔 그렇게 집을 짓는 사람이
Well, I guess this is a completely different fuel.
이라 그랬지. 그분이 이제 한옥만 전문이고 미래 나온 사람들이 한옥을 짓겠다고 이렇게 하는 분들이 이렇게 있어요. 그분하고 같이 의논하면서 엄마 의견이 많이 반영된 집이지. 저 지붕이 아까 엄마는 기아로 하면은 뭐
절 같다고.
그래서 저기 이제
저거는 뭐냐면은 적산목이라고 그래. 적산목. 나무를 여러 번 쪄서 말려가지고. 그러니까 지붕재 중에서 제일 비싼 지붕재야. 적산목이라고.
Not again. Oh!
7만 가끔 해주는데 우리 매년.
Last time I died like that, I flipped over on
시값이 엄청
this.
들어가. 저게 페인트를 많이 먹더라고.
적산목도
다 수입이지. 전부 다 북미 캐나다 쪽에서 수입해. 저 나무도 그렇고 거의. 그리고 저기 기둥 같은데 바르는 페인트도 오일스텐이라 그래가지고 그것도 다 독일산 수입산이 많고 그런 거지. 그래서 이제 집을 지면은 사실은 돈도 덜 들어가고 나중까지 뭐
내년말도 잘 되고.
그러니까는 AS가 별로 필요 없고 이런 집은 그냥 뭐 벽돌집이라든가 뭐 이런 집이 제일 돈이 안 들어가. 이 집은 몇 년에 한 번씩 다 페인트 칠을 해주지 않으면 완전히 낡은 집처럼 돼버리잖아.
바래지.
바래가지고 나무가 바래서.
이게 국산 오일스텐을 하면은 1, 2년.
밖에 안 가요?
근데
그래도
국산
이거 좋은 거 하면은 매년 가더라고.
그래도 5년.
5년 이상 가요. 네, 그렇게
인간
해서.
그런 거, 인건비하고 뭐.
네.
집값이 좀 비싸도. 이 옛날에 저 한옥 같은 것은 노화라고 해서 나무 껍질.
근데 그건 못.
Oh wait, I have to no fuel one of those. Oh shoot.
그건 노화 아니에요.
Oh shoot.
적산목이에요.
Okay, 47.4 next fuel. I have to no fuel Big Hill.
그다음에 이제 이거
It's one of the
지어놓고
easier
나서
ones to no fuel,
이
but
앞에
regardless.
허전한데 남부장님이 오셔서 보시더니 이 황토집에는 감나무가 하나 있으면 어울리겠다 그런 얘기를 하셔가지고 그래서 우리가 동네 수소물을 해서 이제 아버님이 감나무를 하나 이제 3그루를 갖고 왔어. 3그루를 가져왔는데 다른 데 심은 거 다 죽고 중요한 자리 거 하나가 남은 거야. 다른 거는 다 죽었어. 그래서
No, I sold. Oh, I sold. Oh my god, I sold so bad.
단감이지.
땡감 옛날 땡감이지 단감.
Bro, how? Oh my god, that should have been an easy jump.
그러기도 하지.
Bruh.
근데 이건 떫어. 그냥 바로 먹으면 떫으니까.
How much XP did I get?
이렇게 해놓고 주변에 아빠가 좋아하는 수석과
27k.
해마다 여기 분재를 다 놨었잖아. 우리 아버면 잘 알지. 그러다가 올 봄에 분재를
Look, I was expecting a little more.
화분이
But sure.
없어서 매우 허전해.
Bruh. Alright, I don't even know if anyone's watching, but if you were, thanks for